Hey Ben, we're here again with our career chat.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, very good, very good. I know we've missed 1 week, but you were on holiday, weren't you? So
Yeah, well, it's August is that month, isn't it? So
yeah.
everyone ends up taking a break. And yeah, last week I was away in sunny and rainy Amsterdam. It was both at the same time.
Mm.
So
Yeah, good,
glad to be back anyway. Really glad to be back.
good stuff. Yeah. So today we're going to be covering getting into the industry, like for IT and cloud, right? Because
Yeah,
I find this to be a very difficult subject, like because I remember myself when I tried to get into IT industry, I found it very difficult at that time. Like for myself, I was always trying to find a place, but it's like only through like friends' contacts I managed to get something. And I wish I knew like certain things I know now as of when actually applying for a job and everything like that. So not sure if you had the same kind of experience. Like we're talking about just like generally getting into IT first of all. So
yeah. I didn't really get it through a contact or anything. I guess I alluded to it in our last chat that I had, should we say, applied for a job with a company as part of their grad scheme, misunderstood what the job was, didn't get said job, even though I got to final three, and then went for a completely different job a few months later and got that.
yeah,
As a non-grad out of uni, but sorry, as a graduate, but on a non-grad option out of uni. But yeah, I don't. I think the important thing is no two people you speak to are going to have the same experience, the
yeah,
same way of getting in, and also, I will say no two people are going to have exactly the same advice. I'd imagine yours and my experience leads to different advice and different opinions as we go along.
yeah.
Um,
It's kind of why I wanted to bring this career chat onto the table. It's like we're just having a chat about it, and it's like I think you're right in terms of it could all be demand being in the right place at the right time. Sometimes timing works. There's a lot of things that you might need for you to grasp that. But there's also a few things you can do as well, right?
sure, yeah. I mean, we've alluded to CVs, we've alluded to courses, we've alluded to portfolios, we've alluded to GitHubs, certifications, a whole lot in the previous conversations. So, I was hoping in this hour or so we can expand upon kind of, okay, I have nothing, I want to get into IT. How do I get into that first step? And
Yeah,
as I said to you earlier, Andre, I think my experience, say, nearly 10 years ago now, is going to be completely different to what people are going through now, because I'd imagine a lot of people who are getting into IT for the first time have a high possibility of going into a cloud company or a company that is already running in the cloud. It's not going to be a case of going into a traditional data center and looking to move across.
yeah. I mean, you could be joining a company which has already adopted the cloud and is just needing a person to, I don't know, help desk, but the help desk might expand on the cloud. It's not your traditional kind of scale.
Yeah.
So, but whether you be touching that at the very beginning, that's a, you know,
I mean, let's be honest. Most people's first job in IT, and you'll hear this time and time again, no matter who you watched on YouTube or whoever you're listening to, is going to be on the help desk or the service desk or whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
And but different companies have different ways of implementing help desks or service desks. You'll have companies where it's just that your call handling facility and logging calls and moving it across. And you have companies where the service desks actually do fix things, but usually only things that are documented or they're allowed to fix in advance. I would say both are a valuable experience, because I'd say even if all you are doing is logging calls that are coming across, you're going to get to view what the kind of problems that organisation has, and you'll notice any trends that are common occurrences. You'll get to understand what technologies the company you're working for use, and therefore where you should maybe concentrate your efforts if you want to progress in that company.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I get, yeah, it's totally could be that. I mean, from from what I see, is like you might want to get, if you do go into help desk, again, it depends what kind of help desk you're going to be doing. We're going to be doing like desktop support, or you're going to be working a little bit of the hardware, or like, whether, again, is it going to be one of those that you just be that first liner, take all the tickets and then send it to the appropriate people? It really depends on the size of the organization. I think like some smaller organizations will get you to be doing both, but like
Yeah.
bigger organizations will be getting you to do, of course, like the first line.
And that, of course, is valuable as well. The size of the organisation is going to massively affect the experience you get doing that first job in IT.
Yeah.
If you work for a smaller organisation, there's a high chance you'll be doing a bit more than everything than what you may be doing in a similar role in a large organisation.
Yeah. So what would, say for example, you were stripped of everything and you had to start again, and you start in the first year, what would you do?
It's a difficult one for me because I think my interest in IT stems back to when I was about 7 years old, if not maybe a bit younger. My dad used to have fun kind of salvaging and recycling pieces and components of computers and bringing them home from friends, and friends would kick them out. And we never had a new computer at home until I was about 9 years old, I don't think. I remember us getting our first computer and everything, but that's got its own flaws. But when my dad used to bring home things, it was actually just for me to play with. So, I was building servers on Windows Trial Edition CDs at home. I was, this is all we've got a lot more resources now than we had when I was 7. You've got the whole of the internet. You can download stuff rather than wait for it to arrive in the post. If you wanted a trial edition of Windows Server in those days, you'd order the CDs and they'd turn up in the post a few weeks later if you were lucky. So, if I was going back to the beginning, well, where is the beginning? I guess for me, it was, it was a very early interest, very early interest in tinkering. But if I was saying, okay, I'm 18, which is the school leaving age in the UK, unless you get an apprenticeship when you're 16. If I was 18, I would probably look to try and find a job in a smaller local business on their help desk and just get stuck in and run with it. And I would go about that just by applying and then look at the job description they advertise and then working out how to fit my CV and cover letter against that job description, which I think we all agree is a skill in its own own right. And, Andrei and I have already discussed that we're going to do a special CV session at some point. This isn't going to be that session, but we will do a special kind of CV and cover letter and how do I get my foot in the door session at some point in the future of these calls. Or live streams. But yeah, I think that's where I would go. Try and go for a small local company, get my foot in the door, get as much experience as I could. What about you, Andrei?
For me, I definitely would make use of social media, because social media and it's a big thing, okay? Especially LinkedIn. I think it's a massive, massive tool for you to use. And if you actually, maybe post what you learn, or post like for example, you've learned about, I don't know, you say, for example, you're a university student and you've gone through a course and you've learning about, I don't know, virtual machines or something like that. Then, post that on your LinkedIn. Show it to the world that you're trying to show your knowledge, even though you've just learned it, because that is a very powerful tool to start getting you connected. And once people see, oh, wait a minute, this person has actually posted out this. It doesn't have to be very big. It doesn't have to be like me, doing like YouTube videos or anything like that. But just a small piece of information that you have learned, if you share that on LinkedIn, then that would bring about more common interests to you. And if you do that, eventually a recruiter will reach out to you. You know, they may see, oh yeah, you're a university person, but hey, at least or like you just pass, or you know, you're trying to get your foot in the door. But they can see that you're active. You know, you're there. They can see there's a actual online presence rather than somebody, you know, a hiring manager basically getting your CV, and then it just like it's your CV is probably more like everybody else's CV. You know, it's just like you have this CV, and they have to like, and by doing that, you're limiting yourself to one piece of paper which you have to stand out against 95% of the candidates. If you actually had that profile and shared the information, then that is more powerful.
Yeah, and I would go so far to say as kind of, I'm very quick to kind of defend the university position because I didn't do anything to do with IT at university.
Yeah, I mean,
so even though I went to university, I didn't do anything to do with IT. I didn't do a computer science degree. I didn't do a programming degree. I didn't do a web design degree or anything like that. I did geography. So those of you who added me on LinkedIn would know that.
I did criminology and psychology. I'm now in
but it's not to be dismissed, because as someone once said to me, the whole point of university is it shows that you've picked a subject to study, you've worked hard on it, stuck with it, and after 3-4 years or whatever, come out with a qualification that it's not easy no matter what subject you do.
Yeah.
The expertise and the effort that goes into it is a completely different matter to anything else I've ever done. And, you know, quite often, I graduated 8 years ago now, but wait a minute, 9 years ago. I quite often come back to the idea that I would love to go back and study some more. Unfortunately, life might get in the way of that in the meantime. And also, there's also the other off-putting thing of the cost of it nowadays.
Yeah, it's quite expensive, isn't it? Especially in the UK, it's like it's gone up a lot. I think I was in the last year before it went up to like $3,000 a year. So it was just going there. But like, yeah, it's definitely a big cost. But you know, you can.
But university isn't a must to get into IT. The point I'm trying to make is a lot of people get monotracked into kind of maybe a more traditional way of looking at it with a, something that requires some form of registration or certificate. So obviously you can't be a doctor without going and doing a medicine degree at university.
Yeah.
You can't be some chartered engineers and there's certain architecture roles and things like that, I believe, that you can't do without going to university to get the qualification and get the registration. IT is not like that. So I know plenty of companies that offer apprenticeships out to people. So you can be an apprentice and leave school when you're 16. You might go and do a diploma in customer service or something like that while you're on the support desk and work your way through, or you might do something more specific and then you just grow out of there. And that's just, that is a valid way nowadays. I wish I'd known that when I was 16.
Yeah, that's
I mean, when I was 16, I met I was with my first girlfriend at the time. It ended up being a relationship to the end of uni. And, I was convinced that I wanted to be a chef when I was 16, having completed my GCSEs. Well, it was fun. I like to cook. I like food. It works, it's something a bit different. And I did go to college for a short while once I'd done my A-levels. But if I'd known about apprenticeships and the kind of that being slightly more transparent to me, nearly 15, 16 years ago, then I might have gone down that route to go directly towards IT rather than, continue to down the A-level university route. But hey ho, we are where we are.
Yeah, it's definitely again for me. I had I just didn't do I did the third year, but then I decided I wanted to go into IT. I spoke with the university and they said, no, it's too late because I was in the third year. They said you can't really swap to IT or anything like that. So I kind of just went for my gut and what I really wanted to do. It was always my hobby, but I just never like, I don't know, I guess I just never, I think when you're like 18, 19, around that age, you kind of think that you've got a hobby. Maybe it's IT, maybe it's like some sort of different hobby, but like you don't want to convert that into your work because you feel like this is what I love doing, but at the same time I'm probably going to do something work. But as I grew older, it mixed in together. My love of IT actually mixed into the career, and I was like, why did I do this in the first place?
It's the funniest thing ever. That was my logic when going to university as to why I didn't pick an IT-based degree or do computer science. It's because I enjoyed computing so much and computers. I used to build websites. I've done a lot of PHP programming in my time. I've done a lot of JavaScript programming in my time, albeit I'm very rusty on it now. I've had to pick it up. I'll probably be learning from scratch because my brain's replaced that information with other things. But I loved IT. I ended up doing like IT bits when I was at uni. I was involved in societies and student media and everything else. And at one point was, before YouTube Live or YouTube whatever we call what we're on at the moment, there was ways of broadcasting student television over the internet to the world, and I was involved in all that and student radio and developing systems and engineering for that for the student media, and that kept me going in IT. And actually, the geography degree, because I did a lot of cartography, a lot of data analytics and stuff like that, I was playing with things like Oracle databases. I was playing with, very kind of complex to me as a non-SQL and a non-data guy, but things like, PL SQL and Oracle and geospatial mapping and things like that. And it wasn't completely away from computers. I think I was quite lucky, but I was adamant when I was 17, 18, applying to uni through the UCAS system. I did not want to do anything to do with IT because I didn't want to kill that passion.
Yeah. I think that's that's a big mistake a lot of us do make. We have that passion, but we didn't want to convert that passion. And I totally relate to that. It's one of those. Yeah.
I read a lot of computer science books at the moment. I'm reading an awful lot of computer science books at the moment. I probably would have read if I'd done a computer science degree. I joke if I go back and study one day, and I can't see this happening anytime soon. I'd love to do a master's in computer science, which I'm lucky now because I've got the industry experience that I could probably get onto a course without having done a related undergrad. Because when you go to do a master's, you have to have a relation to whatever subject you're picking. And I think if I was just graduating from geography and said I want to do a computer science undergrad with no experience, I probably wouldn't get anywhere. But I think I might be able to wrangle that now. Or I'd hope I would be.
Yeah. I think one of the things you touched on, which I was like, kind of agree with, is like you just mentioned you just played with like different technology, and I think that's what a lot of people who are studying IT or who are studying, they may get the book, okay, or you might read the book or anything like that, but you don't actually go ahead and install whatever it is. You don't go ahead and install your operating system, your install Hyper-V on your machine, for example, create a VM from it. All of those practical bits, if you don't do that, it's going to be harder for you to get into IT rather than if you actually did because IT is quite a practical skill. It's almost like a trade, It's like you have to. The more you do of something, the easier it becomes. Just like any skill, really, right? So it's just like, but if you just go, for example, if I was just reading a book about it over and over again, I wouldn't get that experience. It's like, for example, if I was like doing something with electricity, I can read all the books in the world, but until I actually go there and try and fix a few things, I can't really do it.
Never mind electrical work being a regulated industry in the UK, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think people learn in different ways. So personally, we all know, well, those of us who work in the industry do know how fast things move, and I'm sure those have been a lot longer than you and I will tell us how fast it moves, and we probably have a completely different perspective to what we've got. But I would say people learn in different ways. I like to read on things, but I also like to try things. And if I don't do that, I don't gel the two together and it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
That's been the case in my whole life. It was the case at school. I'm a hands-on practical guy. You know, if I'm in the 3D print, my hobby is in the 3D printing world, as Andrei will know. And if anyone that have friends are watching, they know. But I'm happiest when I've got soldering irons, goodness knows what. And if I'm designing stuff in software, it's another matter. But they do warn you when you get into 3D printing, the hobby becomes building the printers itself. I'm a bit like that. I love the theory of it. I love the software. I love the design. I love the outcome. But my favorite bit is actually getting hands on and deep with wires and soldering irons and spanners and hex wrenches and stuff. So yeah.
I mean, let's take it to actual like basic IT. If you are going to go into a first line or second line role, you are expected to use a desktop PC, how to take it apart and build it. One of the best ways you can do it is if you build your own PC, buy the parts, buy the case, and put it all together. If you do that, you get practical experience of touching, and putting all the components in the right places.
I would go one step further back than that. Get yourself some old scrap parts. Look on marketplaces, eBay being the obvious one, but look for. Don't obviously pay a lot of money for this, but buy yourself some rubbish. Get used to taking it apart, get used to plugging it, see if you can fix the stuff that someone else has given up trying to fix. Because a lot of people mark stuff as dead or sold as seen that, with a bit of research and a bit of hard work, I'm not going to say it's easy. So if it's easy, the person would have done it himself, can actually be fixed and can actually be resolved. Yeah. Get used to handling that. Then go into the world of like saying, right, I want to build my own PC, and immediately we're all guilty of this. I'm guilty of this. I'm not going to hold hand up. When you go to build a PC, it doesn't have to, for the first PC, it doesn't have to be under a top end everything, high end budget. Think about what you're trying to achieve here. Are you trying to build a gaming PC? In which case, I wouldn't recommend you go and buy thousands and thousands of pounds worth of parts if it's your first time building it, because you may struggle, and I would avoid to do damage to that, damage those parts, and then be shafted for the money. But in terms of could I build a £200-400 PC to act as my home lab box? Great. Install Linux on it. Install some kind of hypervisor on it. I don't. This is how far I've been out of it. I don't know if VMware still do ESXi, which is their hypervisor for free, but obviously without any kind of bells and whistles. But install some kind of hypervisor on that box. Build a low end, high compute but low end graphics box, and use that as a home lab and start building from there.
Make sure the CPU has hyper virtualization technology, though. That's
yeah. I mean, the one thing I was going to say is you have to be do your research. Don't just walk into it. But what I'm trying to say is, by all means, build your way in. And I'm going to be honest, that isn't at all relevant in some places. I know of people who've got jobs on help desk who have applied because they can demonstrate excellent customer service skills and a willingness to learn.
I mean,
you might be coming for a job in hospitality, a job in retail, a job in they're the two that stand out, but a job in retail, job in hospitality, and you've already got half the skills needed to be on the service desk to win the front line and get in the door.
Communication, it's a big one. Just being able to answer the phone, so certain things, just presenting yourself, and that's one of the big kind of skills which just that it's there. And then if you don't know something, you'll find out, and you'll find out from your manager or whatever. You can use Google, but just presenting and talking to people. I think one of the things that I was so scared of when I first started working in IT was just like I was scared that the people were like just expected a certain way from me, or later on you'd realize they're just trying to do a job just like yourself. You're not supposed to give this, thinking that. I think some companies drive you to it, that you absolutely, can't seem to speak to people. But honestly, it's just like, talk with people, be friendly, and that just goes a long way. But that's when you get there. I mean, to get into the IT, I think, again, it's just a matter of, again, I would say being being honest about it as well. I really recommend. I did this certification A+. I think it's a brilliant certification to do, because first of all, you learn everything there is to know in terms of hardware, software, and all of this kind of stuff. I think that certification is quite a good one to do. But try and, when you learn for it, try and also apply the practical experience with it. So, for example, if you were learning about like CPUs in that one, not saying in the real world you hardly use that 1-0 to thinking, but what I'm saying is, if you learn that, and then, as Ben said, you buy the hardware, then you look at the hardware, you hold that CPU, that really cements your knowledge. And then when somebody talks to you, maybe in an interview question, what is a CPU? You can actually tell them, because first of all, you've read about it, you understood what it is, and you actually had the practical experience of holding it.
And those questions at interview don't very often go away. You will still, even as you advance your career, get some relatively basic questions about what a CPU is, or what a certain function is, or what a certain Windows server role is, etc. You will get those questions. They never go away. But it's interesting, you coming back to saying about CPUs made me think of something. Right? There are so many. One of my favorite projects that I've never got around to doing, because I kind of, should we say, bought the Raspberry Pis and then sold the Raspberry Pis. I didn't scout them. I didn't sell them on at a high price. I just sold them on because I wasn't using them. I wasn't going to get to it anytime soon. When they, I mean, for anyone who knows, Raspberry Pis are little systems on a board that you get for basically microcontrollers. They run Linux, 64-bit or 32-bit Linux nowadays, and they're designed for like IoT projects or
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things. Sorry, and we use them quite a bit in 3D printing land, because effectively all the controllers are backed by Raspberry Pis. But anyway, build yourself a Raspberry Pi cluster. If you can buy Raspberry Pis at a decent price, learn Linux, learn Kubernetes. And this is going really advanced, but it's that feeling of dealing with the circuit boards and actually dealing with the physical connections and connecting it all up. And in that, you'll deal with networking, you'll deal with OS installation, you'll deal with operating system configuration, you'll deal with Kubernetes, you'll deal with containers. Once again, I'm maybe going a bit beyond that first leap of getting to be a power user on Windows desktop. But seriously, you can do so much, not a lot of money, when they're the normal price. At the moment, you won't be able to, because unfortunately the pricing is through the roof.
Yeah, it's real shame with the chip shortage. But the one thing I gotta say to that is, as you build that project, you
document it.
Well, no, yes, that I agree with that as well. But my thing is like, you have a certain goal in mind. Okay, so it's like your whole project is to actually get an operating system on Raspberry Pi and get onto that. By doing all of that, and by getting on a Raspberry Pi and doing all of that and going towards that goal, you learn so much in the meanwhile. So you learn, networking, bringing the components together, all that kind of stuff. Like for me, my friend helped me build my own computer. He recommended the parts and everything like that, but it arrived and I had to go and building it. But my whole goal was to actually play games with my friends. Okay, that was my whole goal. But I had the journey of actually ordering the kit, getting the kit, building the kit, and then and then when I've learned all these computer parts, it was a bit easier then for me to try and demonstrate, because sometimes they do. Sometimes in interviews, I've had like people you give a desktop PC to you and just go, yeah, could you take it apart and show me what each part is? You know, that kind of element I've seen a lot.
I've never had that personally, but I've heard of it happening.
Yeah. Again,
but then the key thing is that your project wasn't aimless; it had an aim.
Yeah,
it's not a learning aim. It's not a doing aim. It's that I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to play games with my friends.
Yeah,
I want to be able to muck around with virtual machines in a lab. I want to build another good project a lot of people do at home, and this is a common one, is build a media server of some nature. Build Plex is one of them, Kodi is another. Build that kind of thing. So, obviously you need to retain the media legally. But, build somewhere to store your music and play it on your speaker or whatever. It depends where you are. It's going to be a lot different, but there's loads and loads of good projects out there that will get you into that kind of deep dive. But what you need to do is find something that ignites a passion, and build it, and then achieve that outcome. Because it's very satisfying when you want to play games with your friends. And we went for a stage doing it on Friday nights after work. It's just died out in recent times. But when you want to play games with your friends, build a computer and you get to play games with your friends. Great. And at the same time, I've had to put all these components together, and I know where they go, and I know what they are. And if I had to strip it down again, I'd know how to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I learned about port forwarding, DMZ mode, simply because back in the day, the firewalls didn't accept it. So you might have had a modem and a router, and that router didn't accept that game port. So you had to actually go into that, modem and actually, enable that port.
I remember doing it for World of Warcraft.
Yeah, and just doing that task. Hey, look, you've actually configured a firewall. You may not know, it might not be a big corporate firewall, but it is definitely a firewall that you've configured at home. So
you're not. I mean, let's be honest here. So the depths of experimenting with what you would see in a corporate landscape at home when you're just getting started out in your career is not going to be possible.
Yeah.
Now we're lucky nowadays that there's plenty of simulations out there. So if you want to go and do your CCNA, which is Cisco Certified Network Associates, so that is one of the most well-known networking qualifications that a lot of people start out with. There's simulators out there now. So in the old days, what people used to have to do was go on eBay and find a load of old Cisco Catalyst switches and routers that had sat on a desk with the fans going, so they could practice an exam and play on it. Nowadays, there's simulators out there that simulate the environment of a switch, and you can have multiple switches. I've seen these online in some of the videos I've been watching.
Yeah, that's virtual switch.
Being honest with anyone, my area of interest at the moment is kind of in security. So I'm reading a lot and watching a lot on security and vulnerability testing and things like that. It's just an area I've been interested in for years, and I'm finally getting around to actually doing something about it. It's a never stopping danger. It's one of the things it is. It's not a career that you kind of get stuck in and can't progress and don't have new areas of interest come up, because it is constantly evolving, constantly changing. There's constantly new things to learn. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about IT, to be honest. And I would say this much: if you do get a job on a service desk, you get asked in an interview or in some kind of like one-to-one session with your manager, what are your progression wishes, etc. Don't be afraid to be truthful, because I would say service desk lead, manager, whatever, probably knows that 80% of the staff that they have on their service desk are not going to be service desk for life. Most companies do want to see you progress. There is a big thing nowadays that companies would rather promote their own internal people into roles to keep that experience going, and people they know and people they can trust in, than hire in from outside. Don't get one, there's a mix, but there's pros and cons to it. But, it's a good place to be to actually work out where you want to be, what your next step is. But at the same time, don't expect the company you're working for to make hopefully they will do some stuff to help you on your way, but you need to do some stuff yourself as well.
Yeah, my experience is most of the time you kind of have to you need to show initiative. You need to do this. It's not it's not up to a company to hold your hand. There's no. I mean,
No, your company. If you express a wish to want to do something, the company might help you with part of it, or they might give you some time towards it or something of it. Not every company does. That's why I was saying might. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you're there to do a job. They're paying you to do that job. And that's usually when you tell whether or not you are going to be there a while and have the opportunity to progress, or whether you're going to have to leave that job to progress, that company to progress onto what you want to go on to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I guess this is a nice little segue into the cloud, right? Because it's like it's hard right now. I don't know how to say, like, for example, getting your first job, but in cloud, I'm not sure that's the right move. I don't know what it is, but it's just like I feel like if you could start as a junior cloud engineer. I've seen some people do that, but at the same time, you need to learn a little bit about certain things or a specific industry before you jump into the cloud. That's my thinking. I could be wrong, but it's like I think there's certain elements like that. It depends where you go. I guess if you're doing infrastructure, again, you're expected to sort of know, the basics, the networking, you basically needed to be in infrastructure for just a little bit, I would say. I don't know.
I think you have to look at it this way. This is the way I look at it. We have there's three tiers of cloud, let's be frank. And there's something called the shared responsibility model that basically, no matter which cloud vendor you look at, you'll see this documented. So we have infrastructure as a service, which means basically everything from the operating system up, your company or the user is responsible for. And then I'm ignoring the platform management here, so I'm ignoring all the stuff around ARM and Azure or CLI and AWS portal and AWS or anything like that. I'm ignoring all that. But we've got that. We've got platform as a service where you're only responsible for the application code or data. And you've got software as a service where you're only responsible for the data. Now, it depends where your company's at culturally. So generally which tier of that they're using. If they've gone through like a large traditional IT migration, they're probably in the infrastructure as a service world. But I would say what the point I'm making is if you saw infrastructure as a service basis being you need to have skills in operating system. If you saw platform as services, you need to have skills in applications or data. If you saw SaaS as you need to have skills in data, I think you need to have one of those background areas behind you before looking at the cloud, because the cloud only complicates what you already know. And I have seen a few people struggle who have come into a world without any of those backgrounds and just jumped straight in as a cloud engineer, and they've kind of struggled because of not knowing some of the stuff about Windows other people may expect them to know, or not knowing some of the stuff about Red Hat Linux or stuff about Ubuntu, Debian, whatever. Did I go?
Just slightly. Well, yeah,
oh, sorry. But yeah, the point being, or you might have no interest in that. You might be into programming. You might have some websites you've built. You might have done some JavaScript. You might have done some C# or C++ or whatever Objective-C. Jump into the platform service level. Then you probably have a good backbone to get into cloud. So a lot of businesses now have done that first stage of moving into infrastructure as a service, and they're moving forward into platform as a service migration.
Yeah.
And let's not hide behind the most commonly used SaaS service in the whole world is Microsoft 365. So, nearly every business is either using Google Workspace or Microsoft 365, no matter which way you look at it. But I would say, unless they've got reasons for not wanting to or not be allowed to, that's another matter. But the point being, most businesses are in infrastructure as a service land. They want to move to platform as a service land. Generally, if you've got some app dev skills, some understanding of code, .NET, etc., you're in a very good place to move into a cloud engineer at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, because you might go into cloud development, you might go into AI, machine learning, just even hosting websites on, cloud applications and stuff like that. Building your packages and then, exporting them basically to the cloud. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but I think it's just the cloud is not your first career. I think that's what we're trying to say. It's you need to have experience in something before you go into cloud, because that's what you might see, like, for example, cloud salaries to be quite high at the moment. Well, that's because most of the people have already jumped through quite a few hoops before they go into the cloud role, into that cloud.
There's also a huge shortage of labour. Let's not hide behind that. There is an absolutely mammoth shortage of labour in the cloud industry, and that's what's causing part of the problem. But there isn't a quick fix to that. I would say I do over so often see like junior cloud engineer or cloud engineer apprenticeship roles going around. If I was going for one of those roles with kind of none of the aforementioned experience that's being talked about, I would be talking to the company about what they see the issue with that is and how they're going to get around it and what training and development they're going to offer you, because that kind of situation should be wholly different to just coming as a cloud engineer. And I do personally think without one of those backgrounds to one of those services, you will struggle. Because the way I look at it is the cloud is a theme park, right? So if you imagine a cloud as a theme park, it's got more than one type of ride in it. It's got loads and loads of different rides, loads of different stalls, loads of different services. It does loads of different things. You can either come away with something or come away with nothing. What do you have to take to a theme park to use any of it? Money. You have to buy a ticket. I know that's going to sound like a bad analogy. I'm not saying it costs you money to get into cloud. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you don't go to a theme park full of everything and expect to go on the roller coaster without having bought a ticket or without having understood what the roller coaster is and what you're going to go through when you go on the roller coaster.
I mean, you could
go on Oblivion. There's this famous roller coaster in the UK called Oblivion, which is Alton Towers, and it's got a sister ride as well at Thorpe Park. And I would just say, go on that. You'll get the fight of your life if you've never been on a roller coaster before. But the point I'm making is it's really, really easy to get into. It's really, really easy to get that experience. They're crying out for skills at the moment, but I would say you need to make it easier for yourself. If you go in as a cloud engineer without kind of going through one of those backgrounds, you're probably going to have a pretty rough time.
Yeah. I mean, studying for example, infrastructure and Azure administrator, I found it difficult, and I came from an infrastructure background where I was handling firewalls, handling switches, handling Active Directory and all of that kind of stuff, and I was handling infrastructure at that point, and I had to learn, into a much more deeper level than I originally thought I knew. So it is slightly difficult, especially because when you do, like, for example, one of the certifications, it's also you're at the same time learning a new skill in terms of studying as well. It's not just that you're learning, all these technologies and everything, but you're also increasing the way of your learning for studying too. Like, I did all of this stuff via practical, and that's what we were talked about. Like, I went, we needed to learn about virtual machine. Fine. I went ahead. I learned how to get a subscription. I learned how to build a virtual machine in the cloud. I learned how to create a network and, just practically building stuff. And that, I think I talked about it this last week, but like
Yeah.
that really helped me just explain to the employer that, you know what, this is what I've done. I may have not had that corporate experience, but this is what I've done. And they put me on. So because I was able to demonstrate that I have at least played with the technology. If you don't show that, no business is going to take you on because you haven't even shown that you've at least played with it, like in terms of practical experience for yourself. So
I mean, I brought up last week about the idea of getting a free trial for any one of the cloud providers, getting credit, and just going ahead, bloom, and playing with the commonly used services. You know, I think if you're going to say to an employer that you're willing to learn, so you basically, as I said last week, just be honest. Say, look, I've done this, I've done that. I'm really, really keen. I'm really, really interested. I'm really, really willing to put in the effort and learn. Okay, so how do I know you're willing to learn? Because you've already done some learning. And also, when you get into a stage of going through that process to kind of work out what I should be looking at, what studying I should be doing, you know, what I should be saying when I go for a job, it is an opportunity to sell yourself. If you just go in, yeah, I've just got my GCSEs and A levels, and I've got this degree, but actually I'm a bit directionless. I don't really have any passion for anything. I'm just looking for an income. That's probably not going to go down very well. Because, you know, businesses do rely on their employees to do the right thing. And the other thing I will say, I used to have a really negative view on certification. I think I alluded to this in the last conversation we had.
Yeah.
I would say certification has a place. The certifications are not easy, even for those of us who deal with them every day, or deal with the problems and technologies that we've been certified on day to day. There's stuff in there we don't necessarily touch day to day or come across day to day. And I still know people who've got certifications who ask questions about something they've just got certified in. Yeah. They're not just multiple choice tests as people think they are. They are actually require quite a bit of effort, quite a bit of learning, or at least a fundamental understanding of the product you're being certified on.
They do. I mean,
so don't think it's a bit like a multiple choice test or a pub quiz or something like that. It's not.
It's changed. I think that's a different story. Maybe years and years ago, it could have been, but I don't know. I always found it that it could be the, that it again, it depended on how you did it. I think it all depends on if you actually did a practical and then land and pass the certification, you'll find a lot more value than if you just did all the practice exams and then and then went for the test and passed it, but then afterwards you forget about it and you'd have no clue about it. I think there's a big difference in that. So, and the thing is, when you actually go ahead and do it and practically, you kind of build that muscle memory because it's a muscle, it's a skill that you learn. And like, for example, if I was going to build a virtual machine, I remember I need to click create VM. I need to click into my networking tab, this tab. I remember that just off by my heart because I've done it quite a few times. But when you read it in a book, you wouldn't ever remember that.
Well, so we love Microsoft. As Azure engineers, we love Microsoft Docs. How often have Microsoft Docs left you in with more questions than they've left you with giving you answers? Yeah. I would say I've read the Microsoft documentation on several occasions, and it has not answered the question I was looking to answer one bit. And in fact, it's sent me searching for even more answers. And let's face it, the docs are a lot better now than they were 5 years ago. But the point being, it is a bit of muscle memory. It is a bit of learning by doing. Certifications is a whole topic in its own right. do think about it, because different certifications have different technical requirements and different levels of testing. Be aware of what the certification you're doing is and what it is for, and what purpose it serves as well, because there's a lot of certification out there. There's a lot of ones that companies all recognize, and a little secret is the reason why companies that work with Azure or GCP or Amazon or another cloud are so keen on those vendor certifications is usually there's requirements for them to have X number of people with a certain certification to qualify for X, Y, and Z.
They have to renew. Basically, what it is they have this silver and gold partnership, which they can. So I'm talking from Microsoft end. I'm not 100 on GCP or Amazon, but I'll cover the Microsoft. But Amazon, GCP are kind of like the same. So essentially, you have like this silver gold status that you get from Microsoft, and if you have people who, for example, I think like for the data center one, you need 4 people who have passed their solutions architect expert, and in order for you to do that, so businesses need to prove that every year that they have like 4 people who actually have that, and they need to prove that every year. So if, for example, one person decided to leave or 2 people decided to leave at the business because our renewal is coming up, we need somebody with a certification. Maybe you might not be the person with all the kind of like technical experience in the world, and you may have just passed the certification, and you might but businesses might go, oh, well, you have the certification, you meet our needs right now, and we can help you learn and get into there. So
and I'll just clarify, it's only one of the requirements to get these accreditations. It's not the whole thing isn't based on certification, but part of it will be.
Yeah, I mean, our certifications, basically the other requirement is that you might need to have customers of around this amount of money generating, and you have to be a partner. Yes, but
case studies, etc., references.
But that thing doesn't really help you get.
No. I just was trying to alleviate some of the pressure on individuals, just saying it's all on you and your certifications.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you get my point. Like that, it's like businesses might require that, and you might not need to have that full, which you think you may need. I think the main thing about it is, you understand the basic concepts. Okay, so you have your compute, storage, networking, security. You understand how maybe virtual machines or virtual networks, etc., are there. Once you do that, then you can understand about it as well. So
there's plenty of free resources out there to get this far as well. I mean, Andrei's got some brilliant series on the Terraform CAF, which probably comes a bit further down the line than this.
Oh yeah.
There's loads of that. No. But look at the journey you're going through with coding.
Yeah.
Right. You're starting right at the beginning and working through what someone could do on their own on Free Code Camp or with your videos.
Oh yeah, I mean,
work through. You've got other people out there like. I'm going to plug it again. I probably shouldn't, but everyone knows I like Network Chuck. I love David Bombal. I love all of the networking YouTubers that are out there. Network Chuck right now is doing a Juniper cert challenge, and yes, the cert itself will cost you a discounted fee if you do the learning, but the learning is free. Juniper and Cisco are like this.
Yeah,
they're in the traditional networking world, all the fundamentals are exactly the same. They're both as valid. You get some carrier grade equipment as Juniper. You get some carrier grade equipment as Cisco. You get some business that use Cisco, some business that use Juniper. It doesn't matter. It's the same stuff. There's also other vendors out there.
Juniper versus Cisco for your firewalls. Maybe F5, Palo Alto, those ones. Then you have your switches, which are like HP, Cisco, Netgear, some, yes, I know Netgear, but
HP and Aruba have merged, so it's Aruba now is HP networking. You've got Cisco, you've got Juniper switches. You will see Juniper a lot more. In my experience, the higher you go up the tiers, so if you go like up to a top tier, T0, T1 kind of provider, you'll see a lot more Juniper than you will Cisco.
Yeah.
But the point being, don't be all the basics, all the fundamentals around what the Juniper certs at the basic entry level and the CCNA teach you is all going to be valid.
Yeah.
And you know, the CCNA is a very, very good cert, as is CCNE and as is everything else. But you know, look for the opportunities, and quite often these are coming across in YouTube videos nowadays with partnerships. Look for those to advance your career without paying the full weight for a £400 exam, which I think CCNA is quite an expensive exam.
Yeah. Also, one of the things I tried to do was, before I went into IT, I tried to get a CCNA. Oh, that was difficult. I never managed it, okay, because I didn't actually work in a IT job before I went for CCNA. And let me tell you, that was difficult. I mean, it's possible, but without even having like help desk experience or something like that, it's tough.
I've never done CCNA.
Yeah.
Despite knowing an awful lot about networks, despite having configured and built switches and whole networks, despite having built and configured firewalls, I have never done CCNA. I probably should, and I would like to.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely maybe one of the nice to haves, I guess. I don't know if those will be useful now, considering fully in the cloud. But you know, it's the thing is, I think
the point I was trying to make is, even though you're fully in the cloud, the networking fundamentals and networking principles are still there.
Massive. I mean, one of the clients I had was we were a cloud provider, but we were looking at a possible firewall migration, and we had to analyze their current firewall system. You know, as a cloud engineers, you know. We were given access and we had to analyze all that. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's like the networking that you learn will stay with you when you go into the cloud. And I think that also brings us to the point is, once you learn one, so for example, let's just say you get a HP switch. You've learned all that. You learn how to do the online VLAN and all of that kind of stuff. Then when you go into another switch, it might take you a little bit of time to get into it, but the concepts are there. So eventually you will get there. I once actually
there are differences. Having worked on both Cisco, Aruba, and Juniper, the syntax is very the same. The commands are very close in some cases, but they are different.
Yeah, I mean,
and sometimes you have to remember which technology you're working on.
Yeah. Well, one of the times I mainly worked on Aruba switches, HP Aruba switches and then I had an interview where I was like, okay, I'll come into that. And they gave me Cisco switches, and I was like, basically I completely screwed it up, because Cisco switches I didn't touch as much as I did with HP. If they gave me an HP switch, great, yeah, I'll do it. But like Cisco switch, couldn't do it, and obviously I didn't get the job. But that's what I'm trying to say is, like, if you learn that technology, and eventually you will get that chance and opportunity to go into your job. So yeah.
But yeah, if there's anything people want us to cover in future sessions, don't be afraid to post it, or either to, Andrei's a bit more active on LinkedIn, or even just in the comments of these videos. We all have a look and try and take forward some of your questions. Feel free to use live chat, etc. while we're talking. We'll try and cover stuff off.
Yeah, definitely.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear people's different experiences. We want to hear people's different, wills and wants, or kind of views on things. And also, if anyone's got any views from a hiring perspective or something different, then do do, you know, what you might want to see or what your experiences are from the other side as well. I've got some limited experiences on that side. I've been in the situation a couple of times, but I haven't done it loads. Then yeah, reach out. You know, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, that's comes up our hour. So thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you on the
Cheers,
next.
guys. See you later.